Okay, now my job is getting children to learn to read and spell really quickly and easily. So some people who are linguistics or phonetics, fanatics or whatever else will say, oh, that's not technically correct with what you're doing with this, that and the other. And I say, well, to be honest, we can explain that to the children. You can come in and talk about linguistics and phonetics with the 4-year-olds if you want to. I'm teaching them to read and spell. So I've created something which will help them to read and spell. So, this is on, if you go to phoneticsymbols.com, you'll see this. It's a free resource, and the reason I like it is because it's got an example word, so it's a lot easier when you see a phonetic symbol and okay, so that's the phonetic symbol for R, that's the phonetic symbol for OR, where's OO, the phonetic symbol for OO, it's got the 2 little dots there, sometimes you see it without, and like E, sometimes you see it with the little dots, sometimes you don't when you're using the IPA. But something I just wanted to talk to you about is because the more you use these, the more you'll realise why it's so effective for children, and especially if they're non-verbal children, or especially if you're wanting to ascertain which speech sounds they are hearing, because letters don't necessarily, letters, the mapping between speech sounds and letters, graphemes, is often very, very dodgy, because we've then got also accents, and we've got the written code and phonics and what have you. Phonics doesn't, expect people to speak with different accents. So this is the one that I want to have a look at. So if you went to Macmillan, they used to have the interactive phonetic symbols, and you could play it and hear the sound. You would look at that and you would hear ooh, ooh, ooh. Because they're expecting, let's say you're speaking English as a second language and you're looking at the phonetic symbols, that one and that one, they're expecting the child to go t, ooh, tour. So they're expecting the child to, when they look at the word T-O-U-R, to say, I'm going on a tour. So it's like 3 sounds there, isn't it? T, ooh, that's the schwa, tour. So it's tour is 3 sounds. If you do phonics, you'll know phonics isn't 3 sounds. For the phoneme to grapheme mapping, phonics may have 3 sounds, but the grapheme mapping would be a T and then the O-U-R. And normally in phonics, the O-U-R would be an OR. So it'd be this phonetic symbol here. So we go tour. I'm going on a tour. So there's the discrepancy between what people are saying, how people should speak, let's say articulate the sounds and just have this universally recognized phonetic symbols. And then we've got phonics, and we've got how we map the phonemes to the graphemes. So there are all sorts of difficult things, which is why I say I create a nice, easy way for children to learn to read and spell and to know the sounds that each grapheme, each picture of the sound should represent. So you will not see a monster with that on it. You'll see a monster with that. For the, hold on, where's the example word? You'll see the example like a ooh, like moon. And you'll see that for the schwa, the silly schwa, which is the grunty sound, which the children will often argue with me about whether it's an sound or an sound. Like if their name is Maya, they'll say, I want this one, not the schwa, etc. And that's why it's these discussions with these 3 and 4-year-olds are brilliant, because we're talking about, the difference between the sound and the sound. Things that often children don't do till later because of the teaching, not because the children can't understand the concept. If you teach in a different way, children will understand whatever concepts you want, more or less. Okay, so here, so you won't see that. So if you see a word that has that in it, the phonetic symbol, so like for the word curious, you'll see the phonetic symbol for k, then you'll see the phonetic symbol for y. Sorry, I've added a little schwa there, y. It's difficult to say sounds outside of words, isn't it? You tend to add that little sound, that schwa sound. So you see k, y, and then you'd see this, k, y, oo, is curious, sorry, k, y, oo, s, curious. So when they're spelling, I can spell without you, they would think, what sounds can I hear? Now, our children are likely to go k, y, or, s, curious. They might go k, you're curious, k, you oo. They might sound a different sound there, whatever else, but that's what we're exploring. What do you hear? And you can't know what the child hears without using the monsters or phonetic symbols. And phonetic symbols are, to be honest, boring as whatever for 3, 4 and 5-year-olds. But when I ask a child to segment the word curious into sounds, forget how it's actually spelt and the mapping of the graphemes afterwards, the first part of the spelling routine, we just want to hear the sounds they can hear, which is why we use the monsters. But this is not one I use, because I have found that putting the ooer, that really confuses children and adults the most, and that is why I do not have a monster that looks like that. I have a monster for this sound and a monster for this sound, and often they're together, but I don't have one that's like this together, and that is because I'm teaching children and adults to read as quickly and easily as possible, and so I take the stuff out that I know after 20 odd years of teaching children to read, and adults and dyslexics and what have you, to read, that confuses. So that's my job, and you can argue with me as much as you like. At the end of the day, all I really care about is getting people reading and spelling as quickly as possible. So you won't see a monster with those phonetic symbols.